What's going on? Thomas Jordan here, and in today's video, I'll be reacting to Joe Rogan's response to the Neil Young medical misinformation controversy. And before I get into this is for educational purposes only. I'm not here to debate politics with you, whether you lean right, left. Honestly, I don't care. Just be respectful to each other and have an open mind. Now, I'll be breaking down his response from a news reporter / podcaster point of view. If this is your first time on this channel, I was in broadcast news for 10 years, and I covered everything from news to politics and entertainment. Let's jump right in.
Hello, friends. I wanted to make a video to address some of the controversy that's been going on over the past few days. And first of all, to say thank you to everyone that sent love and support. I truly, truly appreciate it. And it's been very nice to hear from you. I wanted to make this video, first of all, because I think there's a lot of people that have a distorted perception of what I do, maybe based on sound bites or based on headlines of articles that are disparaging. The podcast has been accused of spreading dangerous misinformation, specifically about 2 episodes.
All right, so what he's talking about is context, and with any podcast, any news, any sensitive story like what we're talking about today, context matters. And with there being so many news outlets, so much information being thrown at us all the time, and with so many social media platforms being like, it's quick, it's fast, like we don't know it's hard to lose context. Now with Joe and all his podcasts, he has so much content. I think he's in the 17 or 1800s at the time of this recording. You could go and find a million clips to make somebody look bad. It's kind of like reality TV. So next time you see a clip, no matter what it is, whether it's what we're talking about today or something to do with police or something happy, these clips are so small. So just remember that there's more to the story than a 5, 10, 15 second, 30 second clip.
A little bit about some other ones, but specifically about 2. One with Dr. Peter McCullough and one with Dr. Robert Malone. Dr. Peter McCullough is a cardiologist, and he is the most published physician in his field in history. Dr. Robert Malone owns 9 patents on the creation of mRNA vaccine technology and is at least partially responsible for the creation of the technology that led to mRNA vaccines. Both these people are very highly credentialed, very intelligent, very accomplished people, and they have an opinion that's different from the mainstream narrative. I wanted to hear what their opinion is.
So as you know, there is definitely a narrative going around. If you watch Fox, you're obviously leaning more right, CNN left. So there's definitely 2 different narratives. And he's trying to bridge the gap, bringing on doctors and scientists and these 2 individuals that he's talking about. Now, if you think you want to discredit them, or you think that there's holes in these guys' stories, this is where you put your news hat on, okay? Whatever they're saying, get a pad of paper and a pen and sit there and listen to everything he's saying. Listen to the entire interview, make a list of all the things that you disagree with, or, oh, that might not be true. And then go wherever you live, Dallas, Atlanta, LA, New York, whatever, and just be like, doctors near me. And you're going to get a whole list of people and just start calling and being like, hey, I was watching this and you said this, but they said this. So I'm really just trying to figure out what's right. Or if you call like a hospital or a police station, ask for the PIO, so the Public Information's Officer, and they will tell them you're an independent journalist and ask them all the questions you want. But be resourceful. Do you know anybody in the medical field? Do you know any nurses, traveling nurses, somebody who knows another nurse, right, or another doctor? Get their opinion, and if theirs aligns with what you believe, just be like, okay, well, maybe do you know any other doctors who have opposing views, to see what their opinions and where they're coming from. So don't just take one person's word for it. And then just start talking to people as well. Just be like, hey, I found this here. Did you see this here? And just keep following back until you reach what you want to find.
I had them on, and because of that, those episodes in particular, those episodes were labeled as being dangerous. They had dangerous misinformation in them. The problem I have with the term misinformation, especially today, is that many of the things that we thought of as misinformation just a short while ago are now accepted as fact. Like, for instance, 8 months ago, if you said, if you get vaccinated, you can still catch COVID and you can still spread COVID, you would be removed from social media. They would ban you from certain platforms. Now, that's accepted as fact. If you said, I don't think cloth masks work, you would be banned from social media.
Here's another one. So for cloth masks or N95 masks or whatever mask you're using, what you would do is put your news hat on once again and just say, okay, COVID is an airborne particle. So how big is an airborne particle? And then you get whatever it brings up. And then you say, can an airborne particle get through this mask? Or what size particles does this mask stop? And then there's your answer. Verify it with your doctor and go from there.
Now, that's openly and repeatedly stated on CNN. If you said, I think it's possible that COVID-19 came from a lab, you'd be banned from many social media platforms. Now, that's on the cover of Newsweek. All of those theories that at one point in time were banned were openly discussed by those two men that I had on my podcast that have been accused of dangerous misinformation. I do not know if they're right. I don't know, because I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist. I'm just a person who sits down and talks to people and has conversations with them. Do I get things wrong? Absolutely, I get things wrong, but I try to correct them. Whenever I get something wrong, I try to correct it because I'm interested in telling the truth. I'm interested in finding out what the truth is. And I'm interested in having interesting conversations with people that have differing opinions. I'm not interested in only talking to people that have one perspective. That's one of the reasons why I had Sanjay Gupta on, Dr. Sanjay Gupta,
If you guys haven't watched that interview with Dr. Sanjay Gupta, it is awesome just because you don't see it very often. Like he said, he wants to have opposing sides on there, and they had made a lot of accusations towards him that weren't true. And it was almost like a politician, because politicians will try to avoid things. And the interview that I saw is when Joe started asking him direct questions, he tried to veer to the left, veer to the right, and he was just like, no, we can talk about that in a minute. Let's talk about this. And that's what reporters and journalists do, because we're trying to get to the facts, to the truth. And that's what he does. And that's what you need to do as well.
Respect very much. And I really enjoyed our conversation together. He has a different opinion than those men do. I had Dr. Michael Osterholm on at the very beginning of the pandemic. He is on President Biden's COVID-19 advisory board. I had Dr. Peter Hotez on, who is a vaccine expert. I'm interested in finding out what is correct, and I'm also finding out how people come to these conclusions and what the facts are. Now, because of this controversy, and I'm sure there's a lot of other things going on behind the scenes with these controversies, but Neil Young has removed his music from the platform of Spotify, and Joni Mitchell and apparently some other people want to as well. I'm very sorry that they feel that way.
And once again, he talked about having people from opposing sides, those musicians, and it's only going to, I'm sure the list is going to keep growing. It's not just stopping at those two. To have them on the podcast and ask why. Now, this would be really interesting because it's okay, if he's going to book them on his podcast to have an actual conversation, what do you think? This is a question, what do you think it means if they don't come on the show? Why wouldn't they come on the show, or why wouldn't they do a quick Zoom call for 10 minutes and figure out what the actual issue is? What did I say that has you just oh my God, you're on Spotify, I've got to pull my music? Is he just trying? But the thing is also, it raises a question and a theory that if he's not going to answer those type of questions, then why is this really happening? Is he trying to promote something? Is it a money grab? There's just some weird underlying thing, because it just makes no sense. Okay, you disagree with me, I'm going to take all my music off. If he said something that was just so off the wall, just racist, or just some crazy thing, send it to me if it exists. But if it was, then I get it. but it's just like, it just seems so petty. It's just like, what's the real reason? It's like if you fight with your significant other about like leaving towels on the floor and you get in this big blowout. Well, it's not the towels on the floor. There's some other deep-rooted issue. So like, let's find that root and try to figure this out. We've been fighting way too long. I'm tired. I'm sure you are too.
I most certainly don't want that. I'm a Neil Young fan. I've always been a Neil Young fan. I'll tell you a story at the end of this about that. One of the things that Spotify wants to do that I agree with is that at the beginning of these controversial podcasts, like specifically ones about COVID, is to put a disclaimer and say that you should speak with your physician and that these people and the opinions that they express are contrary to the opinions of the consensus of experts, which I think is very important. Sure, have that on there. I'm very happy with that. Also, I think if there's anything that I've done that I could do better is have more experts with differing opinions right after I have the controversial ones. I would most certainly be open to doing that. And I would like to talk to some people that have differing opinions on those podcasts in the future. We'll see. I do all the scheduling myself.
And he's about to go into the scheduling, but it'll be really interesting to see what happens because I've been paying attention to both sides. So, and I'd have to do a little bit more digging, but when it comes to the conservative side, a lot of independent conservative outlets are having issues getting people on the left on their show. And then people on the left are saying, independent lefts are saying that they don't want people on the right on their show. I don't know. That's just the pattern that I've seen. So maybe it's different for him because he's Joe Rogan, but I really, really hope this happens because I really think he can be the bridge.
And I don't always get it right. These podcasts are very strange because they're just conversations. And oftentimes I have no idea what I'm going to talk about until I sit down and talk to people. And that's why some of my ideas are not that prepared or fleshed out because I'm literally having them in real time. But I do my best, and they're just conversations, and I think that's also the appeal of the show. It's one of the things that makes it interesting. So I want to thank Spotify for being so supportive during this time, and I'm very sorry that this is happening to them and that they're taking so much heat from it. And so now the Neil Young story. When I first of all, I'm not mad at Neil Young. I'm a huge Neil Young fan. I've always been a Neil Young fan. When I was 19, I was a security guard at a place called Great Woods in Mansfield, Massachusetts. It's an outdoor concert amphitheater, and Neil Young was playing there, and that was the last day I worked there. I quit during the Neil Young concert. The job was kind of crazy because there was a lot of times it was fights broke out and stuff, and I think I probably got like $15 an hour, and I was not about to get beat up for $15 an hour. So I would bring a hoodie with me whenever I worked. So in case the shit hit the fan and it got too crazy, I would just put my hoodie on and leave and cover my security outfit, my security shirt. So one day during a Neil Young concert, there's the amphitheater, the way it's set up is there's a covered area outside that has seats, and then there's a lawn area behind it. And the lawn area during the Neil Young concert, they got a little rowdy. It was cold out, and they started bonfires. So they had these raging fires on the lawn, and we were supposed to go and put these fires out and stop them. So we tried for a little while, but then brawl started breaking out, and it started getting crazy. And I was like, fuck this. So I put my hoodie on, I zipped it up, and I left. And I drove home, and as I was driving home, I was singing, "Keep on rocking in a free world." That was my last day on the job. I don't even think I collected my last check.
See, how cool would that be if he had Neil Young on to tell that story and figure out why the brawl broke out, or like, was that a normal thing for Neil? Because I'm sure he saw what was going on. But that is a great story to ask him. It doesn't all have to be serious. It can be great conversations like this too.
No hard feelings towards Neil Young, and definitely no hard feelings towards Joni Mitchell. I love her too. I love her music. Chucky's in Love is a great song. I don't know what else I can do differently other than maybe try harder to get people with differing opinions on right afterwards. I do think that that's important. And and do my best to make sure that I've researched these topics, the controversial ones in particular, and have all the pertinent facts at hand before I discuss them.
And you guys have to understand too, if he's booking his own guests, I didn't know that. I know he's his producer, Jamie. I thought he did all that. That's actually great advice. Start your own podcast, right? And you see how hard it is to book guests. Joe Rogan is at a level where he can get anybody at any time. But if you think about it, he's in Austin and all these other doctors and stuff. I don't know how he's going to correlate these time with these doctors and scientists that probably live all over the world just to get them into his studio. Like, they're not just sitting around being like, oh, I hope Joe Rogan calls. They've got lives too, trying to figure out everything as well. So it's like booking your own guests and like keep with the follow-up is, I'm not going to lie, is a nightmare. So to get people of this caliber that he's talking about, I can't imagine. I know you can, from bigger platforms that he said he wants to see the opposing side, could probably send him a DM on Instagram or something and be okay. But doctors, scientists and stuff like that, or maybe even get like a panel. But once again, even if you got a panel of like 3 or 4 people, you got schedules and people's health. Like, oh my God, it's a nightmare.
Again, I'm not trying to promote misinformation. I'm not trying to be controversial. I've never tried to do anything with this podcast other than just talk to people and have interesting conversations. I didn't plan it. I can't believe it's as successful as it is. It was never really an idea that I had. The podcast started off as just fucking around with my friends and having fun and talking. And then when it became popular, other people wanted to come on, and I was like, oh, it'd be cool to talk to that person. Oh, he's interesting. Oh, she's got a cool book out. And then boom, it's become what it is today, which is like some out of control juggernaut that I barely have control of.
And that, as a podcaster, that would be a question for him, because I think it's fascinating that he started his podcast, I think it was at like 43 years old, and it didn't get big till he was 53. To me, that is insane. And what does it feel like to literally be the #1 podcast in the world? I mean, you are dusting all these other media outlets by a landslide. Like, what is it like to have it be a juggernaut? Are you getting like weird phone calls from the government wanting to try to whatever? I'd also like to ask what it's like as a comedian and seeing all your comedian buddies start podcasts and them growing and things like that. And then what it's like to get another comedian on to your show and kind of how you figure out how to bring these people up, because in LA the Comedy Store is really big, and if you get big enough you get your name on the wall. It's like a rite of passage. It's like a big deal, and I want to know if it's the same thing to some comedians to be on his podcast. That's what I'd want to know. So
my pledge to you is that I will do my best to try to balance out these more controversial viewpoints with other people's perspectives so we can maybe find a better point of view. I don't want to just show the contrary opinion to what the narrative is. I want to show all kinds of opinions so that we can all figure out what's going on, and not just about COVID, about everything, about health, about fitness, wellness, the state of the world itself. It's a strange responsibility to have this many viewers and listeners. It's very strange, and it's nothing that I prepared for, and it's nothing that I ever anticipated. I am going to do my best in the future to balance things out. I'm going to do my best, but my point of doing this is always just to create interesting conversations and ones that I hope people enjoy. So if I pissed you off, I'm sorry, and if you enjoy the podcast, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you to Spotify. Thank you all the supporters, and even thank you to the haters, because it's good to have some haters. It makes you reassess what you're doing and put things into perspective, and I think that's good too. All right. Much love to you all. Thank you to everyone, and I'm going to do my best. I really like that he addressed everybody. I mean, he's got over 14 million followers on Instagram. This is going viral as we speak. But I like the fact that he apologized.
He apologized to everybody when he honestly really didn't have to. He apologized to his haters, Spotify, Neil, everybody else who was involved. Like, he's so okay. He apologized. I really like the fact that if he's going to be talking about really sensitive issues, that they are going to put a disclaimer on there, because that's fair, right? Everything else online has a disclaimer on it. So if he's talking about sensitive topics such as COVID and everything like that, it only makes sense. And also, he's having other people on his podcast from other sides. So accountability is going to be huge. So if he's booking all these guests, it'll be, I hope that he saves emails or comes with a spreadsheet or something, because, you know, in a year or two, if, you know, he hasn't done what he said, we can be like, hey man, you said you were going to do X, Y, Z, and you haven't done that. And he could be like, well, this is why. So that that way no one can back into a corner. It's like, well, no one wants to come on his show, if that's the case. The last and final thing I will say is accountability. If you believe that Joe Rogan is spreading all this information and it's just dangerous to everybody, hold him accountable. He gave you a whole list. Watch this again. A whole list of things that he wants to do. Follow up with him in 6 months to a year. I'd give it a year and just see where he's at. And we'll go from there. All right, that does it for this video. Make sure you comment below and let me know your thoughts on Joe's response. But real quick, before you go, once again, if this is your first time on this channel, the goal of the channel is to help you grow your network and your net worth through video podcasting. So if you're a startup entrepreneur and you have a podcast or you're thinking about starting one, I have a free gift for you. It's a list of the top 25 podcast interview questions that will make you sound like a pro, so you can clearly communicate with your guest and convert your listeners into leads. And these are the same questions that I use in my interviews as well. The link for that is in the description. We'll see you next time.